Thank you again for joining us. I'd like to introduce you to Ciara Munley. I can't see if Ciara is there, and Duncan Gaeltacht from Sport Ireland. They led on the development of this framework. And today we have Chris York and Vincent McAlinden joining us. They undertook the work and they'll be delivering on today's information session. So the framework has been developed as part of Embracing Ireland's Outdoors. This is the 5-year National Outdoor Recreation Strategy from 2023 to 2027. So as you can see, we're well into the delivery of the strategy. There are 6 strategic objectives in the strategy, and 2 of these are particularly relevant to the development of the framework, which we're going to introduce you to today. That moved on there. So the first strategic objective is to improve the knowledge, skills and expertise of stakeholders and partners. The ambition of this objective is to equip those working in the area with the skills and expertise to be more effective in their roles. Another strategic objective, which is really important to this, is to protect the environment through better planning and development of outdoor recreation in keeping with best practice management of landscape. The ambition of this objective is to protect our landscapes, our habitats and built heritage by better planning where and how we develop our outdoor recreation infrastructure. The strategy aims to create a more coordinated approach at national and county level to ensure the best use of our resources. Better planning and development of our outdoor recreation infrastructure is embedded throughout the strategy, and part of this is ensuring that those who are working in the outdoor recreation sector have access to training and guidance, and that's what we're talking to you about today. So how will we get there? One of the commitments in the strategy was to establish a working group to oversee and create clear guidance procedures and practice for the development of outdoor recreation infrastructure. This working group was established in early 2023. It's a subgroup of Córa na Tua, the Countryside Council. For those of you who aren't aware of that, I'll put a link into the chat when I'm finished here, and you can read a little bit more on who is involved in Córa na Tua and how it works. So the development of the framework was led by Sport Ireland, as I said before, and using external contractors. It was developed last year through workshops with select stakeholders in various roles and over a 4-month period. Throughout this process, they identified the competencies which are required by those working in recreation. But of course, this will depend on what your role is. Some of the competencies may apply for your role and some of them might not. And we'll talk you through that as we go through it. There are 6 sessions being held today and tomorrow. Our intention is that once these introduction sessions have been completed, the department together with Sport Ireland then will carry out a skills survey of the sector. So I hope that you will engage with that when we do circulate it out. So this survey then will help us to identify what the training needs are. So by you looking through the framework and identifying your competencies, you can let us know through the survey where you have training, where you feel your competencies need to maybe be boosted up. We'll be able to map then the existing training and educational courses out there. This could be modules with the ETBs, this could be with things like Mountain Mehel, or it could be through 3rd level education courses. So there'll be a variety we'll be looking at. And then we'll be able to highlight areas where training gaps exist, and that will inform the development of new courses or new modules within courses or continuous professional development modules, whatever it might be, once we know what the sector needs and priorities are. So again, we'd ask you to really engage with that survey when it's circulated. So that's it. I'm going to hand you over to Chris and Vincent now, and thank you again for joining us.
Thanks, Leon. So good afternoon, folks. It's great to see a lot of familiar faces and some not so on the call. We had 45 on this morning, we have 50 on this afternoon, and then another group later. And so altogether it'll be hopefully reaching out to about 250 or so folk. Just to share awareness of the framework itself, what it is, what's inside it, where it came from, and the nuts and bolts, and then hopefully warming you up for those who are going to link in with session 2, where we're going to give you an opportunity to look at mapping competencies and really getting under the hood within the framework. So this session, you can think of it as more of a show and tell. We're going to have a good bit of time at the end for discussion and Q&A. So if you have a pen and paper, make some notes, whatever. The slides will be shared at some stage, so no need to take screenshots of things, but certainly take notes and keep abreast of things you're thinking about. So myself and Chris are going to present this afternoon. And there was a link in the invite to the document, to the framework itself. Some of you may have had a look through it, and some of you maybe not have had the chance yet, but definitely after the call, hopefully you'll go back and scroll through. So thanks very much for attending. Thanks for Eilish and Leon for setting this up to give us an opportunity to look at what the sector is about, what we've all been doing for years, in terms of managing our infrastructure and all the skills and all the knowledge that we've accumulated and all the skills and knowledge that we reach out to others to access and help us do our work to make this place better. So I'm handing over to Chris now. We'll run through some slides and then back to me, and then we'll finish up with Q&A. And again, we'll have lots of time for that later on. So thanks for attending. Thanks, Salish. Thanks, Leon. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks. Okay. I thought I would start by giving you a little bit of context. Sort of, what's the point? Why are we developing a framework for training or for knowledge and skills? Can't we just carry on as we are? Well, the context of what we're talking about, Ireland is welcoming visitors. They're already coming, you know that. But in terms of outdoor recreation, the phrase world class keeps cropping up. People are talking about it being really high quality experiences. And we need to make sure that that is either for real or continues to improve, and all of the money that's being spent is done well. People using the outdoors absolutely want the best experience, and we as people practitioners in this kind of sector, this industry, we want it to be best for them. So understanding what the knowledge and skills are that are required is part of making sure people will get the best experience. We also, all of us, I hope, want to look after things for ourselves and for the future. So making the best decisions is really important part of that, so that we're not looking back in 5 years' time going, why on earth did we build that? Why on earth didn't we build this? Why did we do this or that? It's sort of making sure that those decisions we make are the most informed decisions. And very importantly, it's about public money. I mean, a lot of public money is being spent on these improvements. So they're your taxes, they're also your wages. But it's really important that we spend them well. So a little bit of making sure that money's spent in the right place isn't a bad idea, I would say. For our sector, it's really important for us to understand whether we've got the right people and the right mix of skills looking after that outdoor recreation infrastructure. And the big question is, how will we know anyway? You know, at the moment, everyone can go, yeah, of course, I'm competent. I know what I'm doing. But is that just a sales pitch? Is that just well, I think I'm competent, therefore I am. So what we thought was going to be useful was to build a framework on which everyone can hang their hat and benchmark where they are. So this is a document at the moment. And what we're doing today is really introducing you to the document and the kind of why we are kind of promoting it. Before we start on that, there's a quick question for you. If you were going to build or renovate a house, you've got some choices. What would you do? Would you use an architect to design it, a builder to build it, and a plumber to plumb it? Would you buy a whole load of bricks, start in one corner and see where you get to? Would you ask your mate who says he knows how to wire a plug to do your electrics? We're not going to vote on this because that will be dangerous when we find out that everyone says we're going to buy a whole load of bricks and start in one corner. But essentially, we've got to think about it. Why should it be any different for paths and trails or other outdoor recreation infrastructure? We need the right people in the right jobs doing the right activities. Obviously, it needs to be a bit more nuanced than we can only use an architect to build a path, for example. But it's definitely not about just making sure it's a closed shop and nobody else can get in unless you've got the right qualification. What it's about is understanding our people. Do they have the experience? Do they have the capability? Are they competent to build trails, to look after trails, to look after other recreational infrastructure like, I don't know, water hubs or cycle paths? And what the idea of this document is to try and give you a way of measuring that. In my kind of, I'll call it a career, it's probably not a career really, but 25 years of looking after paths. A question that keeps coming back to me is just how hard can it be to build a path, to look after a trail. And for those of you that have already done it, you've probably been asked the same question. So those of you that have done it will recognize that there are all these sorts of things, tasks that you have to do in order to get to the point of building a trail or looking after a trail. There's all sorts. And the summary there is really, it's complicated. There's loads of things you have to do. So what sort of training would you need in order to do that? Well, yeah, it's complicated. So what we tried to do, instead of just saying, oh, we need a training course on how to build a path, we thought it would be useful to build this framework of the competencies, a framework that showed you what the range of things are and gave you a way of kind of grouping them so you understand easily the same kind of language and you can talk to each other about these sorts of things. So these different colors are different themes of activity. Now, there's a whole host of things there, but actually when you look at the whole kind of the sector, there's a lot more. So you won't be able to read all of these, and you're not intended to read what they are, but it's just meant to give you an idea. There's a massive array, and it can be quite confusing to try and keep it all in your head. So what we've done is try to build this framework to give you an easy way to navigate through the problems of looking after outdoor recreation infrastructure. And it's probably applicable to other areas, and we've drawn ideas from other sectors. But this is really about bringing it together in a as simple a format as we can do. So what we did was we grouped those activities, those 60, 70 activities, into different themes. So these are the main themes that hopefully fit together. And the idea of the beehive shape is to kind of give you an idea that it isn't a linear thing. You don't start in one corner and work your way along, and you end up with environment and culture. All of these things you need to take into account. They sort of fit together, and all of them sort of feed off each other. And that's really important because it's not like a hierarchy. It's not like saying that regulations are the only thing you look at, or recreational users are the most important thing. Even though you might actually think that from your own perspective, if that's all you think about, you're probably not looking at the big picture. So we're trying to give you a big picture. So let's just think about one of those themes. And in the document, if you see it, there's a way of navigating, which is to pick on the themes, and then the more detail is found further on in the document. And what we end up with is a series of competencies. So each one of these items within this example of planning recreational infrastructure has a series of sort of underlying items. So things like user experiences, understanding structures and finding your way around a trail, doing a walkover survey, getting all the way through. These are the things at the planning stage. You need to be competent across the board in order to plan it really well. Within that, again, the depth of kind of information, there is more. And again, you probably can't read all of this, but you can go to that document when you're there. So let's just pick out this one about user experience to give you an idea of the language that we're using. It's quite brief, and it's not particularly technical, but it's not the most accessible language. But hopefully it gives you an idea of what we're talking about. So we describe what the competency is. What should you be able to do if you say you are competent to do this? So it's deliberately brief, and it doesn't cover all the possible nuances. And that's because we didn't want a document that was 400 or 500 pages. We didn't want war and peace. So that's the kind of level of information, and it gives you an idea that there are competencies, but we can go deeper than that, because those levels of competency helped you to understand the different types of people that are out there working in the sector and where you are in that sort of, I wouldn't call it quite a hierarchy, but on a journey from a worker to a leader. Some people are happy to be workers, some people want to be leaders. But are the leaders competent to be leaders? So we've split it into different levels from basic level. As you become more experienced, you've got more knowledge and skills and you apply them. And that's the really important thing, not just about having them, it's using them. And then right up to the top level, if you like, the advanced level for somebody who might be a leader. Again, to give you an example of this for the user experience, this is the type of description that we have got within the document. So as a worker, you would be expected at the basic level to have that basic level and be involved in understanding user experience. You would be able to contribute to determining what the features are and the construction elements on a trail that are appropriate to the site. So knowing what to put where and whether that's appropriate for the trail that you're building and whether they're appropriate for the intended use. So not putting gates on every 50 meters along a cycle path, for example. And does it meet the required standards or is it best practice? So this isn't about you having to have all of that knowledge, but you need to have some understanding, that basic level. At an intermediate level, you might be sort of tasked with designing something or tasked with leading something. So you should be able to determine those features. You might want to bring in the rest of your team who have got that basic level, but you're determining what those features are. You're making the decisions. And you might be able to demonstrate that you know what something like the least restrictive option is. So how can you make it most accessible in the circumstances? And then if you're leading, you need that advanced level. So you are the one that can deliver the high quality proposals. You might be working with other people's information. You might be working with a team of people who have got the specialist knowledge, but you can lead, you can provide guidance, you can help the contractors and the consultants to make sure they're doing things right. And you're contributing to best practice. So what the idea of this is that you as an individual can assess yourself as to where am I good enough to do the job that I'm being asked to do? So is my employer supporting me enough, for example? Or if you are the employer, are my employees capable of doing what we're asking them? And do we need to support them to get them to the next level or even the level that they're meant to be? So that's actually a really important part of this kind of the framework itself. I've not really talked about the context of how you're going to use it. And that's really where we're going to look at the next stage. And I'm going to pass you back to Vince to do that.
Okay, thanks very much, Chris. So hopefully you're looking at the next slide. It says levels of competency. Is that correct, Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah, good to go. Here, so folks, so we've heard from Chris and Leon before, so the origins of the framework. And Chris put up a reasonable amount of content, and that content is sitting in the PDF and the link that was in the invite. The PDF itself, okay, it's a fairly functional document, and it's definitely well worth taking a looking at. But that PDF, it just didn't fall out of the sky. And Leon said a wee bit of where it came from, but it sits within Sport Ireland Outdoors on their web portal, and it's really well supported by DRCG and the NOR subgroup from Cornalatua, but it is the sectors framework. So it's not mine or Chris's or Leon. This is the sectors framework, and it's an iterative thing. So all that content, it's there to help us as a sector do things better. And what is that? What is that better? Well, and again, Leon pointed back to Embracing Ireland's Outdoors, which is our strategy, the sector strategy about creating sustainable infrastructure, delivering on for nature and for people, providing really good recreational experiences, and so we all can enjoy Ireland's outdoors in a better way. So we've got the framework, we've got all the words, and how does that actually have use to us as a volunteer, as a construction company owner, as a project engineer, as a consultant? So what use is this framework? So I want to have a little look now for 10 or 15 minutes on that. So it's not just a tick box, and Chris mentioned that it's not like a threshold or a badge to be where it's not. It's much more than that. So what we're saying is, and Chris went through that. Sorry, this competency thing, if it's there in front of you on site, or you're watching somebody working, you can see it pretty much right away. But if you're on site, or you've engaged a consultant or a contractor, and it's not there, well, then it's definitely too late. So how can we recognize it? And that's the sort of the holy grail. Well, we can see it as good practice, and maybe that could be benchmark good practice. So people could say, well, yeah, I've had really good practice at a basic level, or yeah, I've been operating as a leader within 2 or 3 different projects. I've been in a range of situations and over a long time. So that experience isn't just once or twice off, it's over a certain amount of time, and it's in a range of different environments. And then the learning, well, that could be a mentor, it could be on-site learning, it could be an apprenticeship, and of course it could be a qualification that many of us might have or picked up, the HNDs, degrees, CPD modules. So those can be a statement of attainment of competence, but certainly shouldn't be just attendance. So we should be looking for quality learning and an application of that knowledge and skills. And then in terms of evidencing that, the framework sets out that all those different levels, all 66 of them for basic, advanced and intermediate. So those actually could be, you could say, yeah, I've got that, or I want to work towards that. And you could evidence those in the reports that you produce, the work that you, as evidence on the ground that you've done, the meetings that you went to. You have a work diary or a journal. You maybe you keep a photographic record of the work that you're doing, and that could be installing counters, it could be putting up interpretive panels, it could be design work, it could be construction work. And then you might have a collection of the construction tickets or certificates and qualifications you have, and then you've got peer review. So there's not one thing that is just, oh, that's my evidence, but we're suggesting that there's an ability to put a portfolio together, and then that can be your evidence of your competence, but it can be your organization's evidence, and it can be evidence that your project is then fit for purpose. So far, so good. Chris mentioned about trails and paths. As a sector, we have built not that much within Ireland, but we're maintaining an awful lot. We're repairing an awful lot. We're managing an awful lot that's more than trails and paths, whether it be counters, interpretive panels, shelters, all sorts of blue and green infrastructure. So it's that breadth of material that we considered within this framework, and that all those skill areas and those themes are applicable to the whole spectrum of recreational infrastructure. So one of the things we're conscious of is that you have an awful lot of experience, you have an awful lot of knowledge that's cumulatively built up into your competence. And it, as Chris has already said, it's not about making a barrier that unless you do this ticket, or unless you have these letters after your name, then you can't be competent. The framework is about a way of allowing you as workers and professionals within the sector and volunteers to demonstrate to the client, to the funder, and to the organisation that, yeah, we're able to do it, we can do it. So it's more than just building walking trails. So the framework itself then, if we've got the text, we've got the PDF, but how can it help us do our work? So we've already mentioned that these competencies and themes are embedded within the strategy, and that's what the Bracing Ireland's Outdoors, it wants to achieve. It wants to allow us to do better work. So how can the framework do that? Well, the idea is we can recognise and show that we've got skilled individuals on the job. We can show that our project has the competencies that are going to pretty much like to make it successful, or that the project that we've just done was successful because we had this collection of competencies together, and that shows that us as a team or as an organization are then, yeah, we're fit for purpose, we can do things. And if we're able to have those competencies in-house, or if we're able to show that we can access them from a range of outside, then yeah, we've got a good organization, potentially a great organization that can then deliver. Working through the framework and teasing all these things out, it really showed us that the framework itself, even within the PDF, has got the functionality to allow us to look at ourselves and go, yeah, have I got what I need to do my job well? Are there other elements of my job that actually I don't really know that much about, or I don't have the extra bit of training or the extra bit of knowledge or skills that allow me to make better decisions? That could be in interpretation, it could be in stakeholder engagement, it could be understanding the Disability Act, it might even be think about, okay, how do I navigate the planning process? How do I do procurement better? How do I budget better? So all those things aren't going to be applicable to everybody, but certainly somewhere within your project, you should be able to reach out and go, yeah, if I need it, that person has it. Or if I need it, I know where to go to get it. So it's that collective lens that we can reveal the competencies we need. And we don't need them all at the right time, and we don't need everybody to have them all. But during the project lifetime or the project life cycle, we're able to identify the skills and knowledge that we need when and where, and then we can deploy them. So it's almost going to be a project planning tool as well. If we're looking at credibility of projects, well, here, look, we know that if you're engaging a consultant or if you're a client looking to get a contractor on board, you want to get the right people, and asking for competency portfolios is one way to start. And then as an individual level, whereas a volunteer or as a professional, we want to make ourselves better, and we want to look at how we can build our own personal skills and knowledge. And it's a bit like if you don't have a map and you're going into somewhere new, well, you have no idea what's over the corner or around over the next valley. But think of the framework as a map, so we can identify what the range of skills and knowledge are out there, these competencies that are out there that we might want to look at. And again, that's right across all the themes, from planning, from regulatory, from visitor safety, right through to interpretation and knowing about different recreational user types. So we're getting towards the end, and what we want to look now is, hopefully some of you or most of you have signed up for session 2, and that's really where we want to get under the bonnet and show you the tools that we've started to develop and think about, and show how you can actually start to frame that competency mapping for yourself or for your team and for their organization. So in session 2, we're going to look how to use the framework. We're going to map your own competencies and that of your project or your organization. And crucially, as Leon pointed out earlier on, the next step of this is, well, if we've got gaps, where do we go to fulfill those? It could be CPD, it could be bespoke training courses, it could be just sharing within your team or organization. Well, you know it, why don't you show me? So hopefully the competency mapping process will help that. And then just to finish off, that you've got that link in your invite. Anyway, that's the link to the PDF, and it's posted already in the chat that we'll look at shortly. And then just looking back at Sesame Street, just to keep ourselves cheerful, even if we can't see the sun. So see, competency, this idea that it's not something we should be afraid of. It's certainly not setting up thresholds or barriers, but it's there to help us do better work. And we think about it's not just a book or it's not just a leaflet, it's the application of the skills and knowledge. And that's what competency is. And that's what the framework is trying to shine a bit of a light on, that the sector should aim for. So that's it, folks. We're going to move on to a Q&A session where hopefully you'll be able to share and ask the things you've been thinking about. And we're going to use the Teams chat function, or sorry, the Teams Q&A function for that.